Welcome to the Friday Spotlight Energy Report for September 10th, 2010. Hosted by Jed Knudsen, Chantel Flanders, and Julia Batchison. Here is Chantel Flanders with this week's major headlines.
Thanks, Jed. BP has finally sealed the Macondo well, and it is no longer a threat to Gulf waters. Late last week, the damaged blowout preventer was removed and a replacement was installed. This is the first time in 4 months that residents of the Gulf states can rest easy knowing the Deepwater Horizon rig is no longer a threat to their community. While the well is now sealed, BP's job of cleaning up the area is far from over. The company has now accumulated over $8 billion in total costs associated with the disaster, and that number may be more than tripled before the operation is completed. The costs incurred include the sealing of the well, cleanup and federal costs, along with claims payments made thus far. BP has raised some concern in regard to its ability to generate income to cover the costs of the Gulf disaster. The company is worried that proposed United States limits on offshore drilling will negatively affect its ability to compensate for losses incurred and created from the Deepwater Horizon rig explosion. BP America Executive Vice President David Nagel stated last week, if we are unable to keep those fields going, that is going to have a substantial impact on our cash flow. Even though BP is financing cleanup costs now, the company recently released a report that would lead us to believe that it is looking to spread the blame and the costs of the accident in the Gulf. While it does point some of the blame internally, BP has not been shy about naming other companies and contractors involved and the roles they played in the disaster. Both Transocean and Halliburton were named as being partly responsible in the report. Halliburton has already fired back at BP, stating that the report has a number of substantial omissions and inaccuracies, and that the well owner is responsible for designing the well program and any testing related to the well. Transocean was also quite critical of the report and commented that it was entirely self-serving. Now over to Jed for our top energy news stories in the United States.
Thanks, Chantel. Insurance giant MetLife added to its already impressive portfolio of renewable energy recently by investing in a Texas wind farm. The 238-megawatt farm is owned by Pattern Energy Group, consists of 118 turbines, and generates enough power for approximately 80,000 homes. The additional cash flow will give a much-needed boost to the project. In all, MetLife has now invested over $1 billion into renewable energy. The United States Department of Agriculture is now offering $23 million in grants and loans for qualifying renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. Rural projects, small businesses, and agricultural producers are all eligible. Senate Majority Leader Reid and climate legislation are back in the news this week as well. Reid was initially part of a bipartisan energy legislation but withdrew his support at the last second. When asked about the chances of having some sort of climate legislation passed before January, Reid simply stated, "It's a cinch. We're not going to get it done this year." Reid remains an advocate of capping greenhouse gas emissions in the electricity sector, but also believes other laws need to be in place before adequate climate legislation can be introduced and passed. It is believed that he will try to separate both the natural gas vehicle and home renovation incentives from the proposed legislation in order to give that aspect of the legislation a realistic chance of approval. Now over to Julia with more energy news from around the world.
Thanks, Jed. China has taken both an interesting and aggressive approach to help meet its clean energy goals. Rolling blackouts and power cuts have been ordered throughout the country. While this new policy may help the country meet its goals, it is proving detrimental to local businesses. Industrial areas are being impacted negatively as the lack of power is decreasing production. The general manager of Jintai Metal Wire Company expressed concern in being faced with penalties if they cannot deliver orders on time because of these imposed power restrictions. German Chancellor Angela Merkel is trying to push through an energy plan that would extend the use of nuclear energy through the currently mandated end in 2022. The Chancellor's proposal would give an additional 12 years to nuclear energy. This may be exciting news for nuclear power plants, but wind energy may be the most penalized sector. This is due to a levy tax that the nuclear industry would have to pay to continue operations that could be as much or more than $3 billion. Funds previously earmarked for investment into renewable energy, primarily wind, would more than likely be the source of payment for these new taxes. Our final story comes out of the United Kingdom. HSBC Holdings, a London-based financial and banking services organization, has released a report stating that low-carbon markets may triple over the next 10 years. Even if the market is not as aggressive as anticipated, HSBC's head of climate change still expects to see a dramatic increase in the market. Nick Robbins stated, "Even in our most bearish scenario, we expect the market to double by 2020. That is your energy news for this week. For more headlines, visit us at worldenergymedia.com. This is Julia Batchison for Jed Knutson and Chantel Flanders at World Energy Media. Thanks for watching and have a great day.